Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
The Stock Movers Report, your roundup of companies making moves in the stock market, harnessing the power of Bloomberg data.
Let's take a look at some of the stocks on the move today here in Europe. I'm Caroline Hepker with Jemana Basecci, and we're joined by Bloomberg's equities reporter Sam Unstead. Sam, good to have you with us this morning with so many earnings and so many companies to think about. Let's begin with Beiersdorf. Their shares are at their lowest since November 2022. What's been going on with this sort of consumer-facing business?
Yeah, so this is the German company that owns Nivea, and a lot of the weakness here is volume-led and consumer-led. So the consumer part of the business, there is another part of Bayer which is sort of more in Beiersdorf, which is more in the sort of chemicals area. But this is very much led by the consumer part, and volumes going down, volumes certainly weaker than expected. So that will raise this kind of question that we've been seeing from a few consumer companies over the course of the last earnings season, of whether they're going to have to start raising prices again, how far they can do that in order to deliver revenue growth if volumes are starting to come under a little bit of pressure.
And in the insurance space, insurer Hiscox shares have jumped. Why is that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of stories here with Hiscox. So for the company itself, they had a surprise buyback in there, like another season when, particularly in London, where you have a lot of cheap stocks, that a lot of companies are buying back a lot of shares. This one was not expected, so that's driven a lot of the share price jump. The other interesting thing with these guys and their rival Lancashire also reported today, there's a bit of anxiety going into these results because of their exposure to the California wildfires. And Lancashire said that the industry overall is looking at about £40 billion worth of losses. But because both Lancashire and Hiscox kept their guidance, and in Hiscox's case issued a buyback, that sort of reassured the market a little bit.
Okay, so that's on the insurer Hiscox. Meanwhile, Glencore, there was a big issue about whether this major miner was going to move to the US in terms of its listing, but that doesn't seem to be happening now. It
does not appear to be happening. I hesitate to call this a boost for the London market, maybe more of a relief.
Yes.
You're not going to lose kind of a large stock. I think with Glencore, some of this was being driven by that they had sized up their coal business in the last few years. There is more appetite for fossil fuel investment in the US, so that had been part of the attraction. They did mention on the call today they didn't think they were going to be able to get into the S&P 500 if they were to move over there, so that really reduces the attraction of doing that. And then beyond that, they also had results out which were a bit weaker than expected, so earnings fell a bit short, because it's worth remembering, of course, they have a big exposure to copper, and there's been a lot of tariff-related turmoil in copper markets over the last few weeks, and really over the course of since April, really, there's been a lot of uncertainty and volatility going through those markets. So a combination really of no move to the US and also earnings falling a bit short of expectations.
The Stock Movers Report from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.